Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope all of you are fine. Well, today we are here with a very interesting topic in continuation of the parasympathetic system, and we will discuss about the scenario, and at the end of the lecture we'll solve how to proceed to the scenario. In mid-afternoon, a co-worker brings 43-year-old JM to the emergency department because he is unable to continue picking vegetables. His gait is unsteady and he walks with support from his colleague. JM has difficulty speaking and swallowing. His vision is blurred and his eyes are filled with tears. His co-worker notes that JM was working in a field that had been sprayed early in the morning with a material that had the odor of sulfur. Within 3 hours after starting his work, JM complained of tightness in his chest that made breathing difficult, and he called for help before becoming disoriented. So students, it's a very interesting topic. As you can imagine yourself that Mr. JM was working in the field. So he is by profession field worker or a farmer. So what is the complaints of the patient? His gait is unsteady, right? He's unable to walk. Then it means that he has also difficulty in speaking and swallowing, and his vision is blurred. Why? Because his eyes are filled with tears. Alright, so there is increased lacrimation, there is paralysis of the muscles so that he cannot walk properly, and what other thing is that there was the odor of sulfur. And he has also given you a hint that he was working in the fields where there has been spray of something, because you know, whenever the person is working in the field, they use kind of insecticide or pesticide sprays to protect the crops. So what happened to him? There is tightness in the chest, making the breathing difficulty. So another clue which has been given is there is respiratory difficulty. So there may be a paralysis of the respiratory muscles as well. So this is a very important question often asked in your exam. So how would you proceed to evaluate and treat Mr. JM? What should be done for his co-worker? So this is a typical scenario of organophosphorus compound poisoning, which is the topic for today's discussion. So organophosphorus compounds come under the heading of anticholinesterases or indirectly acting parasympathomimetics. We'll be discussing these drugs in detail. Previously, we have discussed about the reversible anticholinesterases, and in today's topic, we'll be discussing about irreversible anticholinesterases. So just a quick recap of how the anticholinesterases work. If you recall from your initial chapters, there is synthesis of acetylcholine by combining the choline and acetyl coenzyme. It forms acetylcholine, which is stored in the storage vesicle, and then with the help of calcium, they are released from the synaptic vesicles. So this acetylcholine, since it is destroyed within microseconds by enzyme acetylcholinesterase into choline and acetate, and choline is reuptaken to be used again, and this is also the uptake of the choline is also the rate limiting step of this whole process. Then this acetylcholine, which was metabolized within microseconds, that is why the acetylcholine, if somebody asks you what's the clinical uses of acetylcholine, so we'll say it is not used in humans because it is metabolized within microseconds. But other esters of acetylcholine are being used for therapeutic uses, like which we have already discussed, like carbachol, bethanychol, methacholine. All right, these are all the esters, the direct acting esters. So what is happening, that this release of acetylcholine is either stimulated by a substance or either it is decreased by another thing. So what you have to memorize is the release of acetylcholine is blocked by botulinum toxin. All right, release is blocked by botulinum toxin, and the release is increased by black spider venom. All right, black spider venom increases the release of acetylcholine. It's a very important MCQ. Basically, this whole diagram is consisting of several MCQs. Like you can be asked, what is the rate limiting step of this reaction? So it is the recycling of the choline. This is the rate limiting step. then you can be asked that how the choline enters into the parasympathetic nerve terminal. So it enters through the sodium choline cotransporter. All right, and this step is blocked by hemicholinum. The transport of choline is basically blocked by hemicholinum. All right, so you have to remember hemicholinum, botulinum toxin, black widow spider venom. All right, and over there is the use of acetylcholine esterase enzyme, which splits acetylcholine into choline and acetate. So the topic for today is indirectly acting cholinomimetic or acetylcholine esterase inhibitors. So what they are going to do, they are going to inhibit this enzyme acetylcholine esterase, so inhibiting the metabolism of acetylcholine. So more of the acetylcholine would be available post-synaptically. All right, so they are indirectly acting cholinomimetic. And we have covered direct acting, and in indirect acting we have covered reversibly acting, in which we have discussed about physostigmine and neostigmine and other alkaloids like pilocarpine and nicotine. So in today's lecture we'll be discussing about the irreversible indirectly acting cholinomimetics. So anticholinesterases, do not confuse anticholinesterases with anticholinergic drugs. Students, at this point I'm emphasizing again and again anticholinergic drugs, which means they are going to inhibit the action of acetylcholine, whereas anticholinesterases mean that they are going to inhibit the action of choline esterase enzyme, thus increasing the level of acetylcholine. So these are opposite to that of anticholinergic. In exam, whenever you are asked one whole of the pharmacology, so students often confuse these two terminologies, so beware. So these are the agents which inhibit acetylcholinesterase enzyme, all right, and protect acetylcholine from hydrolysis. So indirectly acting parasympathomimetic drugs, they are those drugs which inhibit competitively which enzyme? Acetylcholine esterase enzyme, and thus increase the concentration and duration of effect of acetylcholine at its receptors. They are divided into reversible and irreversible ones. And reversible ones, at this point, remember one thing, reversible ones, they have the clinical uses, like we have discussed about physostigmine, neostigmine. You all know physostigmine is used in glaucoma. It is used to reverse the poisoning of neuromuscular blockers, and as already discussed in the myasthenia gravis, there is use of neostigmine and pyridostigmine. Whereas the irreversible ones, in which we will just classify in a moment, the irreversible ones, whenever irreversible ones are asked, there comes the use of insecticides, organophosphorus compounds majorly. So they do not have a clinical use in humans. Of course, they are used as pesticide and insecticides. So they are not clinically used in humans, except for one drug, which I'll be telling you later on. So the major classification of anticholinesterases or indirectly acting parasympathetic drugs are reversible and irreversible. You have already discussed about the carbamates, acridine derivatives, and then we come to irreversible ones, in which there are organophosphates, ecothiopate, carbaryl, insecticides like parathion, malathion, diazinon. Carbamates may you have diflos and proxor, and war gases. What are war gases? Like the which are used in during, like we call it the ANSU gas, right? Carbon, sarin and soman. And insecticides and pesticides are those which are sprayed on the fields to protect the crops from the various pests. So this is how you can memorize that these are the whenever the farmers they are spraying, they should protect themselves, because whenever there are sprays of these material in the crops, there are more chances of toxicity to the farmer themselves or the people adjacent working in the field. So you must protect yourself from the adverse effects of these organophosphorus compounds. All right. So regarding the chemistry, anticholinesterases are either esters of carbamic acid or derivatives of phosphoric acid. Carbamates, in which there comes phytostigmine and neostigmines, and in organophosphates there are highly lipid soluble except ecothiophate. Alright, so you have to remember this point, which is also important for MCQ. All drugs are highly lipid soluble, so whenever you spray them, instantly they enter inside the body and they have a very rapid rate of absorption and distribution, except for ecothiophate. So mechanism of action of anticholinesterases, once again, just have a quick recap. This is the site of action of these drugs, which inhibit the action of acetylcholinesterase enzyme and thus inhibiting the metabolism of acetylcholine. All right. Okay, in case of irreversible anticholinesterases, the organophosphorus compounds, the general features are their pentavalent phosphorus compounds, as the name is indicating, organophosphorus compounds. They have a fluoride group in DFP and organic group in ecothiophate. They're highly lipid soluble, non-polar. Of course, they're lipid soluble, so they are not water soluble. They would be non-polar. They're volatile, except for ecothiophate, which is water soluble. So this is also MCQ. Ecothiophate is water soluble. They're rapidly absorbed from intact skin, mucosal surfaces, and GIT, and they cross the blood-brain barrier since they are highly lipid soluble. Clinical features of organophosphorus compounds. So now recall the scenario from the first slide. What were the features in which the Mr. MJ was presenting with? He had difficulty in swallowing, difficulty in walking, unsteady gait. He had extreme lacrimation and blurring of vision, right? And there was respiratory difficulty. So organophosphorus compounds, they have effects both on neuromuscular junction and at the CNS. Also on the skeletal muscles, that is why there would be muscle twitching, fasciculations and paralysis. Glandular secretions, there would be increased salivation, bronchial secretions, bronchoconstriction. That is why the patient had breathlessness and chest tightness and difficulty in respiration from the scenario. There may be diarrhea and lacrimation. So as you can see, all the secretions of the body are increased. So what is the hallmark of organophosphorus compound poisoning? There are more effects on the neuromuscular junction. That is why the skeletal muscles are affected and more effects on CNS than at the muscarinic sites. There will also be increase in sweating. On the eye, there would be miosis as the action of parasympathomimetic. There would be spasm of accommodation. It is called cyclospasm because of the excessive parasympathetic excess. CNS, there would be excitation, convulsions, followed by depression and respiratory failure. And neurotoxicity, it may cause peripheral nerve neurotoxicity, which is evident by weakness and sensory loss. So students, at this point you can memorize the toxicity of organophosphorus compound as DUMBLESS. D for diarrhea, since there is increase in the parasympathetic tone, and as you can remember, what is the action of the parasympathetic system on the GIT? It causes diarrhea. Then there is urination. The patient may present with fecal or urinary incontinence. And you can also get a scenario in this way. Then for M for miosis, which is the pupillary constriction. Then B is for bradycardia and bronchoconstriction, because you all know that the effect of the parasympathetic system on the heart is bradycardia. All right, and on the bronchi they cause bronchoconstriction. Then we have lacrimations, since all the secretions of the body are increased for the parasympathetic system, and in this toxicity of organophosphorus compound, there is excess of acetylcholine. So there would be increased lacrimation, excitation of the CNS and emesis, increased salivation, sweating and secretions are also increased. So these are the trademark of the organophosphorus compound poisoning. All the systems are following the features of the parasympathetic tone. All right, very important. In exam you can be asked how would you manage a case of organophosphorus compound poisoning. You may be given a scenario like I mentioned you in the first slide, or you can be asked directly that how do you treat the organophosphorus compound poisoning. So we'll be discussing in the upcoming slides how can you manage the patient. Now we move on to a very important university question, that is the treatment of organophosphorus compound poisoning. So it can be accidental, it can be homicidal or suicidal. So what are the basic steps to treat the patient? Number one, decontaminate measures are important to prevent absorption from the skin and GIT. Since I told you that these compounds are highly lipid soluble, very volatile. So you need to decontaminate the patient. How you can decontaminate? First of all, the clothes should be removed and the skin should be washed with sodium bicarbonate solution. Then gastric lavage with activated charcoal and water along with sorbitol should be done. Airway should be kept clean, artificial respiration may be needed, and inject atropine. What is atropine? Atropine is basically anticholinergic drug. So because this poisoning is due to the excess of parasympathetic system or excess of acetylcholine, so we have to reverse it by giving anticholinergic drug, that is atropine, which we will be covering in the next lecture. Then you give an enzyme regenerator. Which enzyme regenerator? Which enzyme? The acetylcholine esterase enzyme regenerator, which is pralidoxime. Alright, so as I told you earlier that organophosphorus compound, they bind to the enzyme irreversibly. They inhibit the enzyme irreversibly. So to reverse the action, you need to give an enzyme regenerator. You cannot reverse the action in case of the reversible, that it is done when the new enzyme is synthesized. But in case of organophosphorus, since the bond is covalent bond, so you need to regenerate the enzyme by giving enzyme regenerator. And you can give diazepam, which is a benzodiazepine, which is needed to treat the seizures or convulsions because of the excess of the neuromuscular transmission. So what is basically acetylcholinesterase? You all know by now. It's an enzyme which catalyzes the hydrolysis of acetylcholine to acetate and choline. So this is the enzyme acetylcholinesterase. This is its anionic site and this is its esteratic site. Now, the active region of acetylcholinesterase enzyme contains an anionic site and an esteratic site formed by serine residue. So this is the two active sites of the enzyme, anionic and esteratic site. And this is its chemical structure. So in case of organophosphorus compound poisoning, as you can see that the organophosphorus compounds, they bind to the esteratic site of the enzyme, all right, whereas the anionic site is free in case of this poisoning. If we give enzyme regenerator, which is pralidoxime, which regenerates the enzyme acetylcholinesterase, it binds to the anionic site. And how does it act? The quaternary nitrogen of pralidoxime attaches here and the oxime group reacts with the phosphorus atom of the organophosphorus compounds. And this way, the enzyme acetylcholinesterase can be regenerated. All right. So the acetylated enzyme now reacts with water to produce acetic acid and choline once again. So how do organophosphorus compounds react with acetylcholinesterase? They basically attach to the esteratic site. So the most important thing which you have to remember is that in case of OPC poisoning, the esteratic site is not free, but the anionic site is free, and that is why we give at this stage the pralidoxime, which binds to the anionic site, and this process has to be done before the process of aging. So what is aging? Aging is the process in which the hydrolysis becomes resistant. The enzyme cannot be regenerated if the aging occurs. So you have to give this enzyme regenerator within 24 hours so that the action of this enzyme regenerator can be done. Otherwise, the bond will become irreversible, covalent, and you cannot do anything. So you have to give the palidoxime within few hours of the poisoning. So this process is called aging, in which we can say that it becomes resistant to hydrolysis. All right, so it is before 6 to 8 hours, within 24 hours we say, but if we become more critical, it is 6 to 8 hours. All right, so you give acetylcholinesterase reactivators or enzyme regenerators. You also call it enzyme regenerators, pralidoxime. Pralidoxime is basically a quaternary nitrogen which binds to the anionic site of the enzyme, and its oxime and react with the phosphorus atom attached to the stereotic site. I just showed you the picture in which at the anionic site there was a binding of this pralidoxime, and at the stereotic site there was organophosphorus compound. So one end of this oxime, pralidoxime, binds to the nitrogen of the organophosphorus compound. So you have to remember the pralidoxime is an oxime, and you have to give this drug intravenously. It is given slowly, 1 to 2 grams, all right, and it is not effective in the carbamate poisoning. So remember this thing, it is not effective. Why it is not effective in that case? Because this enzyme regenerator has to bind to the anionic site, but in case of this carbamate poisoning, already the carbamates are bound to the anionic site of the poisoning, so they have no place to bind to the enzymes any site. All right, so thank you very much for your patience, and I hope you understood this concept of reversible and irreversible anticholinesterases. So I emphasized more on the poisoning. So you have to remember the main steps that organophosphorus compound. Once the poisoning occurs, you have to decontaminate the patient, remove the patient from the source of that organophosphorus compound spray or insecticide spray, so that you remove the patient from the source. Then you decontaminate by removing his clothes and getting the lavage and washing the body with the sodium bicarbonate, and then you have to give the antidote. So the antidote is basically atropine, which is going to reverse the symptoms and signs of acetylcholine excess. Then you have to give an enzyme regenerator, about which we discussed just now, which is pralidoxime. All right, so you have to give both atropine and pralidoxime, and another supportive therapy is diazepam to control the seizures. So this is a very important question. As I told you earlier and showed you the scenario, it can be asked this way, or you can be asked directly, okay, what are the steps to treat the patient with organophosphorus compound poisoning? Or you can be asked about the signs and symptoms of organophosphorus compound poisoning. Or you can be asked, okay, what is the rationale for the use of pralidoxime in organophosphorus compound poisoning? That is also very important. So I told you earlier, rationale means right drug at the right disease at the right time. So you have to write down the mechanism of action of that particular drug in that particular disease. So for your assignment, what are the ocular effects of pilocarpine? Pilocarpine you have already covered in the previous lecture. So you just have to write down, okay, it is acting on the eye through which receptors, what is its receptor mechanism, and what are the clinical uses of pilocarpine if it has on the eye. Okay, so make it a compact note and send it on your WhatsApp groups. So for now, wish you all the best and for your assignment and for your Eid. All the best, and in advance Eid Mubarak, and see you inshallah after Eid holidays. And I hope this COVID situation ends soon so that we can meet you in live and have a live session. Thank you very much. With that, Allah Hafiz.